What is the process of thinking? What is the thinking process? And what are thoughts? Thoughts are something that happen in the background effortlessly, autonomously, as I'm speaking, as you are listening. Just notice how the thoughts pop up about random subjects, about something you did or heard or spoke recently or from a distant past. Thoughts are like clouds. Almost every day in the sky there are clouds. We hardly notice them. They're there in the background. What is the thinking process? Thinking process also have thoughts, but it is deliberate. The thoughts that I think during the thinking process requires effort. It is a deliberate activity. I have to think it. I have to choose to think thoughts about any subject, and I have to choose to think thoughts in any desirable direction of that subject or situation. I can think positively about that person or situation, or I can think negatively about that person or situation, or they're just neutral thoughts. We tend to think negatively about a person or a situation when I have had a negative experience with that person or that situation. I can justify entertaining bad thoughts, thinking negatively, because I had a negative experience. And no one can convince me to think positively about it because I have had negative experience with that person or situation. So I am justified to think negatively about that. So much so, I even bring the value of truth. My thoughts are true because negative thing happened. It is not wrong for me to think negatively about that person or situation because negative thing just happened in a recent past or even distant past, not just hours or days or weeks or years ago. I can even justify thinking negative thoughts about certain people, groups of people, about a person or a situation that happened decades ago. And I feel powerless, or I allow myself to feel powerless because I have justified my thinking in a negative manner. Because it is true, a negative thing did occur in the past. Thinking process is a deliberate thought thinking thing. I have to choose to do it. I have to latch on to a thought. I have to follow along with it. I have to read into it or write it or think it or take it further. Thinking is the inception of manifestation. Nothing has ever occurred in life without a thought. One can debate what came first, chicken or egg. Did I feel about something? Did I think about something first? It doesn't matter. One will follow the other. A negative thought will result in a negative feeling, and a negative feeling will result in a negative thought. Except it's easier to control our thoughts than to control our feelings. We have become so good at justifying our thoughts, whereas thoughts don't need to be justified. Thoughts are just happening in the background, in the canvas of my mind. Now, since we find it very hard or even impossible to not think any thoughts, Let's just take control of our thoughts. Oh, sorry, we cannot choose to take control of our thoughts. We can choose to take control of our thinking. Let me choose to have positive thinking, a deliberate thought thinking process. You may say, well, I have no control over my thoughts. You're right, you have no control over your thoughts, but you have control over your thinking process. You can decide what thoughts you choose to think. Do I choose to think whatever I want to think? Have I become prisoner of my negative thoughts? And if I have become a prisoner of my negative thoughts, how do I break free from that prison? It's actually quite simple. You walk away from that prison. Even that prison is a thought. So, no, I don't want to think negatively. They're my thoughts. I choose to think whichever way I want to think. It's a choice I make. I no longer want to think negatively. Case closed. Baat khatam. Right at this very moment, I can choose to think positively about me, about a situation. May it be financial, may it be health wise, may it be about my job or success, may it be about relationship. As a matter of fact, I can choose to think positively, desirably about all of these conditions all at once. Let's walk through it. Financially, I can choose to think I have a certain amount of money in my bank. And just remember, some of you are already imagining it on top of thinking it. Okay? But if you're not able to imagine it, it's perfectly okay because all of us know how to think. So I'm having a positive thought. Yes, you can do too. You're free to think positively and give you permission, although no permission is needed. You're allowed and you're capable of holding a positive thought. Regardless of the circumstances, situation, or past experiences, or my feelings towards it. So I'm thinking about certain amount of money in my bank balance, let's say, or net worth, whatever you want to call it. And I'm quickly moving on to my health. I'm thinking, what is my physique? I'm thinking about my good health. Don't worry about what medical condition you have or don't have. Don't let it rule your thoughts. Don't let it justify you thinking negatively about your physique, about your physical body. Yeah, I can choose to think positively, ideally, desirably. What is it that I really want my body to look like? Shape, weight. Don't try to change the color of your skin, okay? We don't have to become Michael Jackson here. What is my intellectual level? What is my mind like? How would I like my mind to be in terms of sharpness, in terms of abilities, in terms of performance, in terms of focus, in terms of retention of knowledge, in terms of appetite for new knowledge or learning, in terms of being able to think and being able to deliberate deliberately on important subjects. in terms of spontaneity of thoughts and thinking on the fly, in terms of decision making, in terms of deciding to do what I want to do. What does my intellect look like? Or what do I think I want to have about my intellectual, mental, thinking faculties? In being able to articulate my thoughts into words. In terms of having control over my thoughts, in terms of having control over my speech. In terms of having ability to start a clean slate every morning. Forget the past, past is past. And looking at the present moment with fresh eyes, with fresh mind, with freshness, just the way the day invites in its freshness. Then think about your emotional being. How are my emotions? How do I feel? Think about yourself as an emotional being. What kind of emotional intelligence you want to possess? Having managed feelings. What kind of feelings I choose to have? And keep it simple in this exercise. Positive, negative, good, bad, desirable, undesirable, favorable, unfavorable. Yes, I can think not having negative thoughts about anyone. I can think not having negative feelings about anyone. It's a thought. I can think it. I choose to think that I don't want to have any negative feelings towards anyone. I don't want to have negative feelings about me. I don't want to have negative feelings about any situation that has happened in the past, or I'm afraid it might happen in the future. I choose to feel only positively about everything in my life. It's a choice, it's a thought. Choice is a thought, it's an intention. Now think about your spiritual self. What moves your spirit? In my thoughts, I can actually move my spirit in whichever direction I want. Now let's move that into the manifestation territory. Think of yourself, so-called future self. Actually, it is not a future self. It is actually in my thought in the present moment. This is the seed level of manifestation. Everything starts with a thought, and you think the thinking process takes place only in the present moment. I can think about a subject in the past, but when I'm thinking, Right now, when I'm thinking about something, I'm thinking only in the present moment. And that's why thinking is super powerful. It is happening here and now. So think about your manifestation that you want to manifest in your mind. Material, physical, relational, feelings, financial, service, purpose, if you have one. If you don't, it's okay. You can make up your purpose. What is it that I want to do in my life? And if you don't have one, make one right now. It's an exercise anyway. You can change it. Thinking process, you are in full control of. You can choose to think whatever you want to think. It's not written down in stone. No justification is needed for you to change your mind or to change your mind about thinking about different things or differently about a thing. How will people react to it? You're thinking about it, right? You can choose positive reactions from people. How would a certain thing unfold? You can think negatively about it and you can think positively about it. Choose to think positively about it. Someone told me in the past, he said, almost all of your thoughts have not come true. He says, then why worry about negative stuff? We choose to think negative thoughts because we are worried, we have fear about those negative thinkings coming to life. So, thinking about my manifestations, feeling about my manifestations, living in this world in my mind is possible, is within our reach. Thinking is a deliberate process, and I have control over it. And for that, I absolutely love me. It's amazing that I always had full control over my thinking process, but I had justified going on a track believing, thinking that I do not have control over my thinking. I can think that I have full control over my thinking, then I will have full control over my thinking. Then I can choose to think about whatever I choose to have thoughts of in whichever direction I want, whichever subject I want. And eventually, I would imagine that I can choose not to think as well because it is a choice. I love me.